My sister stripped my house bare while I was at work. She left a note. "We need it more than you do." I didn't call. I didn't text. I just waited. On the third morning, my phone rang. I came home to an echo. That's the only way I can describe it. I put my key in the lock, pushed the door open, and the sound of my own footstep bounced off the walls and came back to me like a question. The couch was gone. The television. The coffee table my grandmother refinished by hand the summer before she died. The lamps. The rug. The dishes. The microwave. The blender I had used exactly once and kept because someday I was going to make smoothies. The refrigerator had left a perfect, clean rectangle on the kitchen tile where it had stood for 3 years. A ghost. A reminder of a thing that used to be there. I stood in the middle of my empty living room in my nursing scrubs at 7:14 p.m. on a Tuesday, 12 hours into a shift that had already taken everything I had, and I looked at the note on the floor. One sheet of white paper, blue ink, my sister's handwriting, the same looping cursive she'd used since middle school. "We need it more than you do. Thanks, Patricia." Not signed with love, just her name, like a receipt. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully, put it in my scrub pocket, and sat down on the bare hardwood floor. I didn't cry. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just sat there in the quiet of a house that used to be mine and thought about how long I was willing to wait. Longer than she expected. That much I already knew. I had been a nurse at Riverside Memorial for 6 years when this happened. Floor nurse, cardiac unit, the kind of job where you learn very quickly that the human body has limits, and that most people discover those limits at the worst possible moment. I was 31 years old. I drove a 2019 Honda Civic with 74,000 miles on it and a crack in the dashboard I kept meaning to fix. I owned my house outright, a 3-bedroom in a quiet part of town that I had bought with money I'd been saving since I was 24, skipping vacations and eating a lot of rice and beans and telling myself it would be worth it. It was worth it, until Patricia decided it wasn't hers. My sister was 27, 4 years younger than me, which meant I remembered the day she came home from the hospital, this squalling red-faced creature that my mother laid in my arms and said, "She's yours too, Claire. You help take care of her now." I was 7. I took that job seriously in the way that only 7-year-olds who want to be taken seriously can. I helped feed her. I helped with homework. When our mother got sick and our father checked out of parenting in any meaningful way, I was the one who made sure Patricia had lunch money and clean clothes and someone to show up to her school plays. She was my project and my pride and the person I would have done almost anything for. Almost being the word I keep returning to now. Patricia had married Marcus 3 years before the night I came home to an empty house. Marcus was the kind of man who had a reason for everything. A reason why the job hadn't worked out. A reason why the landlord was unfair. A reason why this particular investment was going to be different from the last one. He was charming in the way that requires maintenance. You had to keep choosing to believe him. Patricia had chosen for 3 years. 3 months before they cleared out my house, they had called me crying. Foreclosure. They were going to lose their place if they couldn't come up with $2,000 in 10 days. I gave it to them in 48 hours. Money I had been saving for a car replacement because the Civic was getting tired and I knew it. I wired it without conditions, without a promissory note, without asking for anything except that they let me know when they'd gotten back on their feet. They sent a thumbs up emoji. That was the last acknowledgement I received. 2 months of silence. Then 2 texts that came in the same week. First from Patricia asking if I'd gotten their Christmas card. I had not received a Christmas card. Then from Marcus asking if I happened to have any extra cash lying around because something had come up. I did not respond to Marcus's text. I told Patricia I hadn't gotten the card and let the conversation die. I should have understood then what was being communicated. The card was a test. The silence was a calculation. They were figuring out how much I still cared and what that caring was worth to them in dollar terms. I failed the test by not seeing it was 1. The night I came home to the empty house, I did 4 things. First, I walked through every room with my phone out, recording video. Closets, drawers, the bathroom where they had taken the towel rack off the wall, the towel rack, which is bolted in, which requires a screwdriver. They had been thorough, deliberate. This was not a panicked grab. This was a plan. Second, I called Tyler Marsh. Tyler and I had gone to the same high school. He was a year ahead of me, quiet and methodical. The kind of kid who won the debate team state championship 3 years in a row, and then became an attorney because it turned out the world would pay him to keep doing that. He was now a civil and criminal defense attorney with 9 years of practice in family and property law. I had his number because we'd stayed loosely in touch and because 2 years ago, I had helped his mother navigate a difficult conversation with her cardiologist. People save numbers for reasons. I had saved his. "Tyler," I said when he picked up. "My sister came into my house while I was at work and took everything in it. Furniture, appliances, kitchen equipment." She left a note, a pause. Long enough that I could hear him switch gears, shift from friend mode to attorney mode. "What does the note say?" I read it to him. Another pause. "Claire, that's grand larceny. Depending on the value of what was taken, we might be talking a Class C or Class B felony. You have a legal right to pursue criminal charges. Family relationship doesn't create an exception." My chest tightened. Not because I didn't know what she'd done was wrong, because hearing it named grand larceny felony made it irreversible in a way it hadn't been when it was just a note on the floor. What do I need? A complete inventory of everything taken, estimated values, the video you're taking right now, the note preserved as evidence, and patience. Don't contact them yet. Don't respond. Let them wonder. It matters later. I thanked him and hung up. Third, I called my building's locksmith at 8 p.m. and paid the after-hours rate, $240, to have every lock in the house rekeyed before I went to sleep. Because it had occurred to me that Patricia had a spare key, had always had a spare key, the one I'd given her 3 years ago in case of emergency with strict instructions and complete trust, and that the definition of emergency had apparently expanded to include, we want your furniture. Fourth, I went to the grocery store, bought a sleeping bag, an air mattress, a set of sheets, a bag of coffee, a travel mug, and $40 worth of pantry staples, because whatever happened next, I was going to eat and sleep and go to work and function, and I was not going to give them the satisfaction of falling apart. Then I went home, inflated the air mattress, made a list of everything that had been taken, and did not sleep. The texts started that first night, 12:03 a.m. Claire, we should talk. Can you call me? Patricia, 12:47 a.m. Hey, it's Marcus. We just want to explain. Please call. Marcus, 2:18 a.m. Claire, please. I know you're awake. You're always awake after a long shift. Please just hear us out. Patricia, I read each one. I put the phone face down. I stared at the ceiling of a bedroom that contained nothing except an air mattress, a sleeping bag, and me. They knew my schedule. They knew I was awake. They had planned this for a day I'd be at work for 12 hours, a Tuesday, my standard long shift, and they had estimated correctly that I would come home tired enough to be off balance when I found it. Every piece of this had been thought through. That was the part that kept my eyes open until 4 a.m. Not the loss, as enormous as it was, not even the betrayal, the planning, the calculation. My sister had looked at her life, looked at mine, and decided the math worked out in her favor if she just took what she needed without asking. And she had known, on some level, that I wouldn't say yes if she asked, so she didn't ask. By the second day, I had an inventory, 47 items, documented with photos, model numbers where available, purchase receipts for the larger pieces pulled from my email history, estimated replacement value, $1,400. That was conservative. The coffee table alone, my grandmother's, had no replacement value, but its antique appraisal from 4 years ago put it at $1,800. Tyler had called back. $14,000 puts you solidly in Class C felony territory. That's up to 5 years. Now, what do you want to do with this? I want to know my options before I decide anything. Option 1, criminal complaint. You file with the police. They investigate, likely issue a warrant. Patricia and Marcus are arrested, charged, arraigned. This is the full nuclear option. It doesn't go back in the box once you open it. Option 2, civil suit. You sue them for the value of the property. Slower, less dramatic, and they end up owing you money rather than facing prison time. But you have to find money they don't have, which based on what you've told me about their financial situation, may be an exercise in frustration. Option 3, Tyler paused. They come to you. They return what they took or compensate you for it, and you decide at that point whether to pursue charges anyway. The law doesn't prevent you from pursuing criminal charges even after restitution, but judges take it into account. I told him I'd let him know. Then I went back to work. 12 hours. Cardiac lore. A 68-year-old man came in at noon with a STEMI, and I helped save his life and drove home at 7 p.m. to an air mattress and 47 voicemails I hadn't listened to. The self-control required to not respond, I want to be clear about this, was not easy. I am not a cold person by nature. I am a person who spent 24 years making sure Patricia had what she needed, and the instinct to pick up the phone and shout or cry or demand an explanation was constant and physical. It lived in my chest like a second heartbeat, but Tyler had said something that I kept returning to. Don't contact them yet. Let them wonder. It matters later. He was right. I knew he was right, because Patricia had counted on me responding immediately, with anger, with grief, with the kind of messy emotion that gives the other person something to manage and deflect. She had counted on a fight. Fights have two sides. Silence has one. So I stayed silent. And somewhere across town, my sister and her husband were in an apartment full of my furniture, watching my phone not ring and starting to understand that the calculation had been wrong. On the morning of the third day, I called Detective Rhonda Espinosa. Detective Espinosa worked property crimes for the county sheriff's office. She had 14 years on the job, a practical no-nonsense phone voice, and a way of asking questions that made you feel simultaneously like a witness and a suspect, which I later learned was intentional. You say your sister took the property? Yes. She had access to the home? She had a spare key. I've since had the locks changed. And she left a note? Yes. I have it preserved in a Ziploc bag. A short pause. The specific pause of a law enforcement professional recalibrating expectations upward. Okay, I need you to bring in the note, the video footage, and your inventory. I can meet with you tomorrow at 9. And Ms. Hargrove, don't contact the subjects. Don't tip them off. If they contact you, screenshot everything and save it. Do not delete anything. Understood. One more question. Do you want to file a report that leads to arrest? Or are you looking to use the threat of arrest as leverage for return of property? I had been thinking about this for 3 days, lying on an air mattress, staring at a ceiling, thinking about the girl I had fed and clothed and cheered for and lent money to and trusted with a spare key. I want to file the report, I said. What happens after that is up to the process. I met with Detective Espinosa the next morning. She was compact and precise, wearing a gray blazer over a navy shirt, and she listened to the entire account without taking a single note until I finished. Then she wrote for 4 minutes straight. She reviewed the video on my phone. She examined the note through the plastic of the Ziploc bag. She looked at the inventory spreadsheet Tyler had helped me format. The value estimate is conservative, she said. We may commission an independent appraisal. I want to verify the antique coffee table in particular. At that that appraisal value, it pushes the felony classification. I understand. She looked at me across the desk with the expression of someone who has seen a lot of family property crimes and knows how they usually end. Ms. Hargrove, I want to ask you something off the record. Go ahead. How do you want this to end? It was a different question than Tyler had asked. Tyler asked about options. Espinoza was asking about intentions. I want her to understand what she did, I said. Not just the legal part, the real part. I want her to have to sit in a room and hear someone else describe what she did in plain language, with no excuses available. Espinoza nodded slowly. Then let the process do its job. She filed the report that afternoon. At 9:17 on the morning of the third day since I'd come home to an empty house, my phone rang. Patricia. I let it ring 4 times. Not because I was dramatic about it, because I needed 4 rings to make sure my voice was going to be steady when I answered. Hello? Claire. Her voice was already gone. Thick, wet. The sound of someone who had been crying for a while before dialing. Claire, please. I need you to hear me. I need you to understand. I said nothing. We were desperate. I know that's not an excuse, I know. But Marcus had lost the job and the landlord was going to take everything we had. And I thought if we just had the furniture, the stuff, we could sell some of it and get caught up and then replace everything and you'd never even... She stopped. I think she heard herself say, you'd never even know. Claire, I'm here. Please say something. Please. We've been calling for 3 days. We're scared. Marcus thinks you called the police. Did you call the police? I let the silence hold for 5 full seconds. Patricia, I said, my grandmother's coffee table, the one she refinished by hand the summer before she died. Do you still have it? Silence on her end now. Yes, she finally said. We didn't sell it. We couldn't. It felt wrong. Something moved through my chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Something more complicated. The specific grief of learning that she knew, somewhere beneath the rationalizing, that what she was doing was wrong, and she did it anyway. I'm going to give you an address, I said. You're going to bring everything back. Everything you still have. And then you and Marcus are going to sit down with me and an attorney and have a conversation about what comes next. Claire, that's the option on the table right now. It won't be on the table tomorrow. They arrived that Saturday with a rented truck and 2 of Marcus's cousins to help carry things back in. Patricia wouldn't look at me when she came through the door. She kept her eyes on the floor, on the furniture, on anything that wasn't my face. Marcus tried to shake my hand. I didn't take it. Tyler sat in the corner of the living room with his legal pad and the practiced neutral expression of a man who has mediated between family members before and knows that the most dangerous thing he can do is look like he's on anyone's side. It took 3 hours to bring everything back. The refrigerator, the couch, the dishes, the coffee table which they carried in last, and which Patricia set down with particular care, and then stood back from like she was afraid to be too close to it. 36 of the 47 items were returned. 11 had been sold. Tyler had them sign an itemized acknowledgement of what was missing and a promissory note for $4,200. The agreed replacement value of the items gone below market because Tyler had negotiated it that way, strategically, for reasons he explained to me the night before. If they sign the promissory note, they've admitted culpability in writing. That's usable. It also gives the DA something to point to as evidence of good faith acknowledgement. It doesn't close out the criminal complaint. That's the sheriff's office's process now, not yours. They'll think it closes it out. Yes, Tyler said. They probably will. The criminal complaint moved forward regardless. Detective Espinoza called me 3 weeks after the items were returned to let me know that Patricia and Marcus had been formally interviewed. Marcus had hired an attorney, a man named Roger Daly, who handled DUIs and minor property disputes out of a strip mall office, and who was, by Espinoza's carefully neutral description, not ideally suited for a case of this complexity. The DA's office reviewed the case 2 weeks after that. Tyler had submitted the video, the note, the inventory, the returned item acknowledgement, and the promissory note as supporting documentation. The DA assigned to the case was Melissa Ortega, 9 years in the office, a track record that included 17 successful felony theft prosecutions. She called me directly. Ms. Hargrove, I want to be transparent with you. The promissory note your sister signed works in our favor. It establishes that she acknowledged taking the property without permission. Combined with the note left at the scene, which is honestly one of the more self-incriminating pieces of evidence I've seen in a residential theft case, we have a solid foundation. What are they looking at? At current valuation, the DA's office is charging grand larceny in the 2nd degree. That carries up to 4 years. However, given that most property was returned and a promissory agreement was signed, we're likely looking at a plea arrangement. Probation, mandatory restitution payments, community service, no prison time if they comply. That can change if they don't. I sat with that for a moment. What about the $2,000 from 3 months ago? The loan they never paid back? That's a civil matter, separate from the theft charge. If you want to pursue it, you'd file in small claims. Tyler handled the small claims filing the following week, the $2,000 plus interest plus filing costs. Marcus tried to argue that it had been a gift. Tyler produced the text messages, their exact words, a loan, we'll pay you back, we swear, and the judge awarded the full amount plus court costs in 11 minutes. The hearing was on a Wednesday morning in March. I wore the same blazer I wore for job interviews. I sat in the back of the courtroom. Patricia and Marcus came in with Roger Daly, who wore a tie that was fraying slightly at the knot. Patricia's hair was different. She looked smaller somehow, the way people look smaller when the story they've been telling themselves has been replaced by the one that gets told in a courtroom. She looked at me once, just once, across the room, I didn't look away. I didn't glare. I just held her gaze long enough for her to understand that I was there, that I had been there the whole time, that the silence she had mistaken for weakness had been something else entirely. She looked away first. The plea was entered. Guilty to grand larceny in the second degree, 18 months probation, 200 hours community service, mandatory restitution payments per the schedule Tyler had helped establish. Any violation of probation terms, any, would result in the original sentencing guidelines being reinstated. Roger Daly shook hands with Melissa Ortega afterward. Marcus kept his eyes on the floor. Patricia sat in the gallery for a long moment after everyone else had stood up, like she was waiting for something. I walked out without stopping. She called me 4 months later. No crying this time, just her voice, quiet and careful, the way people sound when they've thought a long time about what they want to say. I'm not calling to ask for anything, she said. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry, not as a strategy, not because Marcus told me to, because I've been sitting with what I did for 4 months and I can't make it make sense anymore. I thought I had reasons. I think I just had excuses. I listened. I don't expect anything from you, she said. I know I used that up. I thought about the girl I had carried on my hip when I was 7 years old, the one I had packed lunch for and shown up for and handed $2,000 to without hesitation, the one who had stood in my living room with my grandmother's coffee table and calculated whether it was worth more than I was. I know you're sorry, I said. That's it for now. That's it for now. She didn't push. That was new. The call lasted 6 minutes. I don't know what any of the next calls will look like, or if there will be next calls. Trust is not a switch. It's a process. And the process, if it happens at all, starts from a completely different place than where we were before. What I know is this: the house is full again. The coffee table is back in its corner. The refrigerator hums in the kitchen. My grandmother's handwriting on the birthday card she sent me the year before she died is still in the top drawer of my dresser, exactly where I'd left it. Patricia didn't take that. Maybe she didn't find it. Maybe she chose not to. I prefer to think she chose not to. It's a small thing to hold on to. But you learn in a cardiac unit that the small things are sometimes the only things standing between a person and the kind of loss they don't come back from. You hold them carefully. You don't let go. 3 months after the hearing, I finally replaced my car. A 2023 Honda Civic, dark blue, no cracks in the dashboard. Paid for with the money I'd been saving. The money I hadn't given away this time. The money that stayed in my account because I had finally learned the specific lesson that some people can only teach you by taking everything they can reach. I drove it home on a Saturday afternoon and parked it in my driveway and sat in the new car smell for a few minutes. Then I went inside, made coffee, sat at my grandmother's table. The echo was gone. That was enough.